Hello and welcome back to another We Ourselves video. Well, as we approach the end of 2024, Marvel Studios has come out and officially announced that Blade, which was originally scheduled for a November 7, 2025 release, has been officially removed from their 2025 release schedule. As a result, the film has been delayed indefinitely. And even though Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios were initially excited and they introduced Blade in the Eternals movie, for some reason they slammed on the brakes, so much so that Mahershala Ali's own lawyer said she had never seen anything like this. And so in this video, I want to talk about the real reasons why they sidelined Mahershala Ali's Blade movie.
Ladies and gentlemen, two-time Academy Award winner, Mahershala Ali.
We all know that on July 20th, 2019, in Hall H of the San Diego Comic-Con, Marvel announced the Blade reboot with two-time Oscar winner Mahershala Ali playing the famous Daywalker, or the titular character. But despite the spectacular outpouring of support, excitement, anticipation on that day, the Blade reboot has been plagued with production problems and delays. Everything from changing directors, actors dropping out, to multiple screenwriters and rewrites. Yet other Marvel Studios projects announced that same day and even after have gone through production and premiered in the theaters or on Disney+. What I want to say, and the question that I want to answer that everybody's asking but nobody's really answering, is why did they put the brakes on Mahershala Ali's Blade? And for me, it's very simple. Mahershala Ali made the mistake of saying that he wanted his Blade movie to be his Black Panther. And when he said that, that is when the red alerts happen, because Marvel and the MCU still haven't recovered from Black Panther doing as well and being as successful as it was. And it still amazes me that there are some people out there who want to point out, well, why would they hate that movie or sabotage the Black Panther franchise when they made $1 billion on it? That's precisely the problem. And I just want to say here is the very success, particularly the success out of all proportions or expectations of a Black-led, Black-created project, that is troubling, because ultimately it says a couple of things. First of all, it really blows out that narrative, particularly that the United States has to this day and is getting worse, particularly in the political arena, that there's something inherently superior of one group of people and inferior of another one. So when you have something like a Black Panther come out, the first one, and it makes all that money and it's super successful and it makes the money around the world, it blows a hole in their entire mentality. The second thing that happens with something like the success of a Black Panther is, even though the studio owners, the producers, executive producers, CEOs, whatever, even though they are making money hand over fist and they're buying their latest houses or they're upgrading their yachts, eventually they notice that the fattened bank accounts did not come because of their ingenuity or their creativity. The increased money, the high box office, came from a group of people, Black creators, that they, the studio, perpetually hold down. And even more, they usually give them less budget, less leeway, and yet they were able to produce this with less. And when the studios realize this, all of these things come together, and that's when they move to take control, which normally means phasing out Black content. It's the Hollywood Black programming pattern, where step 5 is like the fail-safe or like the temporal loom in the Loki series, which you see in season 2.
The temporal loom is a fail-safe.
If everything got out of control or it grew too big, the temporal loom would blow up and reset everything back to the sacred timeline. And in this case, when we're dealing with the studios and Black content, their sacred timeline is simply the way that they deem things should go.
That's the proper flow of time, and it happens again and again and again because it's supposed to, because it has to.
And that's what the Hollywood programming pattern is. Step 5 is the reset. If something, i.e. Black Panther, becomes too popular and it has the risk of getting out of their control, the studio's control, and is giving these black creators leeway so that they can make moves that doesn't depend on the oversight of the owners of these studios, then it has to stop. And the only way that they can stop and reassert their superiority, quote unquote, is through the only thing that they have, and that's control of the finances and the ultimate decision-making power, which is why the NAACP report says there are no black decision makers in the C-suites, and that is why we are getting programming that is ultimately detrimental to the black community. So that is why, for those who insist on not understanding, why they sabotage the Black Panther franchise. Because that first movie shocked the hell out of them, and they had to reassert control. They are on guard to make sure that Black Panther never happens again. And with Blade, we already have the historic record that when the first Blade movie was done, it saved them. And then what did they do by the third movie? They came in, they brought Ryan Reynolds in, and Wesley Snipes was royally pissed, and justifiably so, because they were taking his screen time. It was phase 5 of the Hollywood pattern that was clicking in. So the answer to why they put the brakes on Mahershala Ali's Blade was because he made that fateful decision to say what he did. And as a 2-time Oscar winner, he had the wherewithal to pick up the phone and call people who he had successfully worked with in the past to get this made. This black man was showing that he had the ability to do something that they could not control. That is why they came out and they did that hit piece on him, saying that he had inordinate control and influence. They chose that word on purpose, and I did a separate video on it. Go check it out. The Hollywood Reporter is a print organization. So they chose that archaic word, such as inordinate, on purpose. And when you break down what it means, it says he went beyond the limit. He went beyond what was expected of him. He went beyond the norm. He was excessive. Why? Because he picked up the phone and called people that he had worked with before and say, hey, my project's in trouble. Come on over here. Let's make this thing right so we can make money for everybody. It just goes to show you that control with these people is more important than making the money. Because to control when you're in the face of real creativity is the only thing you have at your disposal, because you are not as creative as these people who put together things like the first Black Panther. You're not as creative as Wesley Snipes, who brought all that charisma and his expertise and his martial arts expertise. He brought that in there and he made that Blade character. He brought that character to life. They know that, and it chaps at them, which is why ultimately they always make the decision to come in and control. And if they can't control, they shut it down, because they figure they can always find another black creator down the line who's just as hungry, because the system has starved them, and they are going to give their all and make the studio money down the road. That's why this Mahershala Ali Blade movie was sidelined. That is why they did that hit piece on Mahershala Ali, saying that he was inordinate for doing what Robert Downey Jr. did when he held Marvel's feet to the fire so he could get the Russo brothers back. Why? Because he was successful with them in the past. It's the same thing that Ryan Reynolds did. Again, I did a short in a video about this. Ryan Reynolds did the same thing. That's why he had all these cameos and these reshoots, because he was going to make sure that his movie was going to hit $1 billion, and it did. When these two white men do this, they are applauded, particularly if they are successful, because those are power moves. But when that black man does it, he's called inordinate. I'm not making this stuff up. That's what they did. That is why they put the brakes on Mahershala Ali, because they knew a Blade movie could probably make more than Black Panther for two good reasons. The first reason it could do better than the first Black Panther is if Mahershala Ali did his first movie and he included Wesley Snipes' Blade, the original Blade in the movie, and we saw both of these actors in costume, in character, going through action moments, and then you had the formal passing of the mantle to the new Blade. That movie would easily make over $1 billion at the box office. The second reason that Mahershala Ali's Blade can do better than the original Black Panther is because, first of all, that Black Panther movie made $1.3 billion in 2018 dollars. In today's dollars, I think if you adjust for inflation, that's $1.5 billion. But that movie was able to do that while being aggressively Afrocentric. Yet, despite that, it did have appeal around the world. But Blade doesn't have that same problem. Except for Blade himself, it's vampires. And everybody around the world knows vampires. And so you don't have that added layer of it being Afrocentric or Black-centric. It could conceivably do even better. And that's another thing that they did not want. They did not want the second outing of a Black hero in his first solo MCU movie to also make $1 billion. Because again, it plays havoc with their greater than, less than mentality. And it is a dichotomous mentality that they have. While they make the money, the very idea of making the money and something being successful, when it starts to chip away at that paradigm that one group's better than the other one, they can't take that. So they exert the only control that they have, which is control. Because creative-wise, there's no comparison. And so they had to shut down Mahershala Ali's Blade. Just let me say this here. Even though Deadpool Wolverine made over $1 billion, just like Spider-Man No Way Home made $1 billion, Black Panther, the first Black Panther, starring Chadwick Boseman playing T'Challa, it still reigns supreme. Even though No Way Home made more money, and even though Deadpool Wolverine either has made more money then or is probably on track to make more money. Why? Because look at what these white-led films had to do. Spider-Man No Way Home had to bring in 2 other living iterations of Spider-Man and 20 years of villains in order to outproduce and out-earn Black Panther, who only dealt with Wakanda. Deadpool Wolverine, look at what they had to do. They had to bring in 20 years of Fox X-Men characters. They had to bring in, first of all, Wolverine, because none of the other Deadpool movies made over $1 billion. So first of all, they had to get Hugh Jackman to come back. So that's 20 years worth of Fox X-Men history in Hugh Jackman. Literally the same thing that, No Way Home had to do. Then they had to have all the cameos again from the X-Men universe over the last 20 freaking years. And you brought in the last Blade. You took all of that, okay, just to hit that $1 billion mark and maybe out-earn Black Panther. And don't even count Captain Marvel, because I've already talked about that. And I was there and I remember, because I always order my tickets ahead of time. I reserve them. And I saw with Captain Marvel and with the second Spider-Man how you had entire blocks of seats. They weren't blocked out because of COVID or anything like that. No, they were listed as sold. But when you go and you sit down, all of those blocks of seats remain empty. So even though Captain Marvel got over $1 billion, it was tainted. That never was a problem with the first Black Panther. Those tickets sold because people were taking busloads of people to see the movie. Black Panther did what Marvel and all these other franchises, like Star Wars and everybody say they want to do. They want to get in the common people. It's not just the fans and the comic book fans. They want to get the common people. Well, you had people who had never seen Black Panther, had never read a Black Panther comic book, hadn't seen any MCU movies, but they got in their car and they went down to see Black Panther. It was literally drawing in people the way that Star Wars and Star Trek and everybody say they want to do with these properties. They want to get the everyday person in there. Well, you had it with Black Panther. So as far as I'm concerned, Black Panther, the first one starring T'Challa, is still king, literally, because all the other franchises, they all had to pull these extra cameos. They all had to pull 20 years of cinematic characters just to push their films over the $1 billion mark. But Black Panther, when it came out, it made over $1 billion with fresh new characters none of us had ever seen in live action. They did not want Mahershala Ali's Blade to come out and do what Wesley Snipes' Blade did 20 years ago. There were all kind of dominoes that were set to fall if he did that, and they could not let it happen. So what did they do? They slammed on the brakes so that Shelby Weiser, Mahershala Ali's attorney, said that deal was in 2019 and they still haven't shot it, which is pretty much the craziest thing in my professional experience. While on the Deadpool and Wolverine side, Wendy Jacobson, The co-executive producer with Ryan Reynolds on the movie had this to say about their production. It was honestly one of the fastest turnarounds I have ever seen. And that's why I always said that Ryan Reynolds was part of the takedown of Mahershala Ali's Blade. And it's reported, and nobody's saying this isn't true, that Wesley Snipes said to him, but how is this going to work since they already have Mahershala Ali? Now, right then and there, you got to ask yourself then, why Wesley Snipes? You still got in that film and you still said that line in that film. Either it was your idea to say that line or it was Ryan Reynolds' idea to say that line. And Ryan Reynolds could have had Mahershala Ali in this movie, but no, because Ryan Reynolds was part of the takedown. Instead of this Blade coming out and being, again, the savior, the one that's injected needed money into the MCU, just like the first Blade did 20 plus years ago, notice what they did, folks. They released that teaser and they had Ryan Reynolds saying that he was
Marvel Jesus.
He was the savior. And then everybody and their brother and all the echo chamber and all the YouTubers who were reviewing it, they were all saying the same thing. Will Deadpool save the MCU? Y'all can call it conspiracy all you want. I'm sorry. And after the film comes out, you have Ryan Reynolds do his tweets and say that Wesley Snipes should get his fourth film. And it's all a coordinated attack, which started, again, answering the initial question, which started when Mahershala Ali made the mistake of saying that he wanted his Blade movie to be his Black Panther. And he had the arrogance, from Marvel's point of view, he had the arrogance when they were already starting to tank his production. He had the wherewithal to pick up the phone and call people with whom he had worked successfully with in the past. And that bit of ability to do that is what scares them, because they could not control that aspect because his other successes gave him that power to do that.
I see a narrative being assembled by Hollywood. A black man being a king does not fit the narrative of
not at all
what they want the world
Yeah.
to see. I don't think they liked the response that came back from a black man being a king.
A king is in charge of stuff, and that's not the image that they want to put out for black characters, particularly black comic book characters. And Mahershala Ali, who was walking in the spirit of Chadwick Boseman, they had to stop that. And I also think it's ironic, way back when Wesley Snipes originally wanted to do Black Panther, but he went through his own similar production development hell. Eventually he said, well, the technology isn't here anyway. So he sidelined the Black Panther project that he wanted to do 20 plus years ago. And when they offered him Blade, he took Blade because he says they were both noble characters. So here you have Mahershala Ali citing the successful first Black Panther movie, a noble character, and he wants to bring that to Blade, who Wesley Snipes said is a noble character. And he had the power to get on the phone and do a power move like Ryan Reynolds and, like I said, Robert Downey Jr. did. All of that was a huge hell no to Marvel and the MCU. I'm just telling you what is happening, and everybody's asking the question, and I'm giving you the answer. They are forever vigilant that they don't have another runaway hit that is produced and starring a black male superhero.
I don't think they liked the response that came back from a black man being a king.
And so that is why the Blade movie, it probably will never happen. They're hoping that Mahershala Ali just walks away so they can just wrap it up. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the matter. Let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you in the next video.